Hello and welcome along to the Property Academy podcast. I'm your host, Epic Knight.
And I'm Andrew Nicol.
And today on the show, we are once again joined by Slade Hocking, who is a real estate agent, but also a very sophisticated buy and flip and buy and hold renovations focused investor. Now, in the last episode, we got touchy-feely talking about the emotive side of Slade's story. Now let's get into the hard numbers. And what we want to do, in the last episode, you gave us through an example of a property that you had basically doubled in value in a very short time. And you were talking about how you were going to the open homes and how, because you're so experienced, Slade, you're able to make decisions quickly. So now I want us all to go with Slade to the open home. We're going to go back in time. I even think I've got a sound effect for it. Let me bring it in. Oh, yes. We're going back in time.
Oh, I remember the day that Andy Dupre came to Shawshank.
So take us back. Where are we, Slade, and what are we looking at?
So when I go to an open home, it's very different to what you think. So the first thing I do when I go to the open home, I look to see who the agent and the agency is. And that'll dictate if I think I can get a deal or not.
So talk to me about that.
So right. Who's a good agent to get a deal from?
I can't reveal that information just yet, Andrew. Some of the agencies out there need to deal in volume, potentially some of the lower fee companies. So how they make a crust is they sell a lot of properties.
They're the warehouse.
That's right. So if they're selling a lot of properties, I want to be buying from them. Whereas some of the other agencies focus on really getting the best what is for the vendor and holding out for the most.
So you're far more likely to buy from a 1%er and not buy from a Cam Bailey.
That's right. That's right. So what I'm doing is first I'm looking at the agent and the agency, and then when I'm getting in there, I'm creating a rapport with the agent and I'm finding out what we call the black swan.
What do you mean by that?
So the black swan is something in the negotiations which maybe doesn't hold monetary value, but it's something that's going to get the deal over the line. So my first question is, what's the vendor's motivation? Why are they selling? Do they need to sell tomorrow? Is it a deceased estate? And then that gives me inside what the vendor wants to see on the agreement. So I want to make great terms. I say, hey, I really like this guy. I want to sell my house to him. And then secondary is what it actually looks like.
So walk us through, with that specific property, I know, just walk us through for anybody who didn't listen to yesterday's show as well. This was where you got 5 owners to agree to sell to you at once.
Yes, so it was a lot of cups of teas, scones and biscuits at various different people's houses, and that's creating the rapport.
Was it a private deal?
It was a private deal.
Right. So you're actually going in and meeting with these people, sitting on their couch, telling them how lovely it is and how you love to add it to your artillery of rental properties.
Something like that. Yeah, along those lines. So it's just the same as working through an agent, but we get to create the rapport face to face.
So how do you get the first deal? And actually before that, I want to know, was it that one of them was up for sale, so you thought, let's give this a crack? Or was it that you drove past and thought, oh, I could make a deal out of that?
Every property I drive past, I think, I can make a deal out of that.
That's spoken like a true confidence of an OPS member.
So we were contacted by one of the owners who owned 2 properties, knew that we were looking for that kind of stock, and said, hey, we're looking at selling all of these properties. Would you like to come and have a meeting? So we drove out to Lincoln on a Sunday afternoon. I remember the details. I remember all of these details. And we had a chat with him and we put an offer in front of him. And he went to all the other 5 owners and said, hey, we've got these gentlemen who want to purchase the property. Some of them are on the fence. So over the next 3 to 4 months, we went meeting people, meeting their children, telling them what we're going to do, having the cups of tea, the biscuits, and making sure they got what they wanted. So one of the ladies was, we needed to find her another house before we could purchase that one. So I used my agent skills to find her another home to ensure that everybody was happy.
And so how many of the properties were occupied by the owners and how many of them were rented?
Yeah, so it was 2 owner-occupiers and 3 rented. So we took on the tenants. Some of them were troublesome tenants.
Yes.
And that was fine by us, but we provided a solution for the vendors.
And how did you manage that with renovations then? How did you manage doing the renovations? Did you do it while the tenants were in there, or did you renovate other units and then move them across?
That's right. So once one was vacant, we renovated it and then put new tenants in.
Cool.
And then if we had existing tenants, we would offer them that first.
Cool.
So what was the black swan for each of these? We had one guy who just wanted to sell anyway, presumably wanted a good price. Is that why he came to you privately?
He was an investor and he just wanted to get out. He had held them for 10 years, so he approached us and we sorted that out for him. There was an elderly lady who was sick of mushrooms growing in her floor.
Oh, God.
They were properly distressed.
I've had that before.
5+ a day though, so... So that was the lady we had to help find a house, a brand new build.
It's quite a step up for her.
It was. It didn't have a veggie garden though. That was my biggest concern. Another couple were wanting to upgrade to a new build. We helped them find one in Avonhead, a newish build, and then we had another tenant as well, which we took on and then patched up the holes in the wall and the broken door.
And I think what's really interesting, and just remember those numbers were quite amazing that you walked us through in the last episode, which was that you purchased them all for about $770, spent about $110 on the renovations. They were revalued at about 1.5, so there was a $620K uplift. It sounds like you really worked for it as well, helping these people buy 3 other properties in order to make the deal happen.
That's right. So that's the black swan. So it's not just a price and conditions on a piece of paper. It's about making them get what they actually want.
And walk us through as well where this idea of black swan comes from. I imagine that you've read Chris Voss's book, and I'm sure people would be interested in hearing it if they haven't heard about it before.
It's a great book. Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. I recommend it to anybody to read when it comes to negotiating and getting into the deal. There's a lot of great dialogue you can use of progressing a negotiation which is stalled. Great lines like, have you forgotten about us? Fantastic book, which I recommend everybody reading once a year.
I recommend as well. He did an awesome masterclass one.
Yes.
And there is a great line which I love using. Andrew, you'll know this, is, am I being ridiculous?
And the reason I know is because probably at least 4 times a day when Ed and I are just negotiating where to go for lunch or what we're going to talk about on the podcast, Ed will stop and say, am I being ridiculous? To which I respond, of course you are, Ed.
But also, one thing that I really appreciate within that book, and it comes in here, and we've got to talk about negotiating actually in a couple of episodes' time as well, is he says that a lot of negotiation is not about the price, but the terms of the deal.
Absolutely.
Which is what you were talking about in terms of, well, it wasn't actually the price that mattered to some of these people, although it was a factor. What they really wanted, that black swan, which you mentioned, is, can I go and buy the next house, or can I move on appropriately and get into the place where I want to?
It's about providing a solution.
Now, what I want to talk to you about as well, Slade, is the team, the structure of the team. So because your family situation's about to change, you mentioned you're going to lean more heavily on your JV partner. So I want to talk about what is that structure of your team and what does everybody bring to the table?
I have a couple of JVs with different partners for different properties and for different scenarios. But my main one is me and my business partner. He is out there beating the streets, finding the properties, acquiring the deals, getting his face out there to get in front of agents and get those deals brought to him as well. Once that's happened, then we underwrite the deal. So I'm very good at looking at the buy price and then the price out the other end. So the numbers. So then we put our skills together, and that's how we have a great relationship. Now, obviously, my life's going to change next year with a new addition to the family, but nothing will really change because I'm not out there beating the streets.
Yes.
I'm doing the numbers.
And from the financing standpoint, you probably bring different levels of equity / income to the project as well.
Better servicing as well. Yep. So, instead of buying by myself, and maybe I could buy 4 or 5 properties by myself a year, I can now buy 8 to 10, and then it just opens up a whole lot more possibilities.
And actually, I've got a question just around while you're out there beating the streets, or you are dealing with people, or when you're going into an open home, do agents know who you are? Like, are you recognised as a fellow agent? Do you wear your agent pin on your suit when you go in there? Does that act as a barrier for negotiations?
If you're a nice agent like myself, it's a benefit. So I can go in there and some of the agents out there know me and they know, great, I know he buys these properties, I know he's going to do the deal, as opposed to a time waster.
Yes.
And no agents like time wasters.
No.
So if you're a nice agent, you can do well. But if you're not a nice agent, you might struggle a little bit.
What I want to know as well, just coming back to the structure of your team, this is a question we get texted in all the time, is how did you find your business partner? How did that relationship start?
Serendipity. We across the bar, we locked eyes and we just moved towards each other.
It's because you had your special open home makeup on so you wouldn't be recognised by the other agents.
It was beautiful. A few years ago...
he is a good-looking man.
Thank you very much. We were working for two different people who did the property game, and they were working with each other, and they said, hey, you two both live in Christchurch, you should meet with each other and just find out what people do. So we sat down at the fine establishment Aikman's in Maryvale there.
That's an agent watering hole.
We sat down and had a chat, and we worked out what other people do, and we could see the synergy there, and then it just went from there.
And so did you end up dissolving some other partnerships as a result of that and then moving in together?
No, we didn't move in together as such, but the previous partnership still stood. Yep. We're very transparent and open about it. And I think that's the best way to do business is be open and transparent.
Especially in partnerships. Mm-hmm. And in a little world like New Zealand where if you go and try and do something behind someone's back, it gets found out and then you look more sleazy than, if you just told the truth in the first place.
Now, the thing is, Slade, there's going to be a lot of people listening to this at home or at the gym, in the car, or on the treadmill thinking, I want to replicate what Slade's got now. And the question I want to ask you is, if someone wanted to replicate that investment success that you've had in today's market, they're just starting out, what would they have to do?
I would suggest meeting as many people as you can every day. Decaf coffee is a great thing. You can have 6 or 7 a day and it doesn't affect you. The first 3 months of my real estate career, I didn't do any sales. I just met people, met developers. Yes. I wanted to learn the industry. I wanted to know people who were in the game. So it's all about networking.
Yes.
It's about who you know. It's about being front of mind as well. So if you're calling agents every day, every week, when they find the property you're looking for, they're going to call you first because you're front of mind. It's not you called them a year ago. I have the same people with myself. People call me every week, and if I have a property that comes up and matches these criteria, I'm going to call them first.
So these are investors who are calling you all the time because they're very active in the market.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So I have lots of investors calling me looking for different types of properties. So the beautiful thing about property is everybody's looking for a different thing, and there's so much out there. So I investors looking for units, investors looking for land, looking for 3-bedroom homes, looking to build a minor dwelling out the back. So there's lots of different categories that I'm dealing with. So when I have a property come across my desk, I know that XYZ is going to want to know about this.
And I suppose the fantastic thing here, or what somebody would have to do if they were to replicate your success, is figure out what is that sort of property that I am looking to do, so that you can call up the real estate agents and say, hey, do you have anything that's like this? If a property comes in with this criteria, give me a call because I'm ready to make a serious deal and make a serious offer. I'm not wasting your time.
That's right. And a lot of how I work out that criteria talking to investors is asking them what their expected yield or profit is. Some people might be expecting $100,000. Some people might be expecting $10,000. So that really dictates where and how they can buy.
And a lot of this knowledge that you're talking about, these sorts of answers to questions, are quite sophisticated. They're quite advanced. There would only be a small proportion, I would imagine, of people out there who would readily have that information available. So how do you go from not knowing that to knowing it?
Winning is beginning. You just have to begin. You have to work out. So when I began, I knew I only had XYZ dollars to play with. So that dictated me. And I knew I was going to build capital through that property to keep going further. So my first project, I wasn't saying, hey, I want to buy $1 million property and I want to do a 10-unit development. It was right down the bottom. So it's about finding where your entry point is and then building on it from there.
And actually doing it.
Doing it, yeah.
Fantastic. Let's wrap it up there, but please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Really helps us get the message out to more people. And hey, if you've got a topical idea or a sort of guest that you'd like us to talk to, send us a text. Our number is 5522. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening to the Property Academy podcast. I'm your host, Ed McKnight.
And I'm Andrew Nichols.
And we're going to be back again tomorrow with even more daily strategies, tactics and insights to help you get the most out of the New Zealand property market. Until next time.